Welcome back for the fourth video in the series of rebuilding the adventure that came with the PAWS manual called The Ticket. Last time we were looking at processes and examining objects. This time we're going to look at building an NPC, which is a bird which flies around the game. This bird flies between the tree branch and the bandstand, and the bird has the ticket that you need in its mouth. If you drop a sandwich at the right location, the bird will drop the ticket and you'll be able to grab that while it eats the sandwich. There is another NPC which we'll look at in the next video, which is a dog, which will cause a bit more confusion to things. The movements for the NPC take place entirely in the process table, and that's where we're going to be working on this video. So as we go down, first thing we need to do is we need to find the ticket object. Let's just go back to objects. Ticket is up in the branch currently. We're going to change that now. Don't want the branch, the ticket, and we want the ticket to be not created. That's because it's now in the bird's beak, and it hasn't got a location as such. So there's a series of messages which we will use as we go along. So the next thing it talks about is process tables. We spoke about tables 1 and 2 in PAWS and the response table, how those are 3 and 4 and 5 now in DAAD. But this time we're going to create an additional process table. This is a process table just for the bird's movements, and we're going to contain everything within that one. So we're going to create a new process, into processes, and we go here to create a new table. This is process number 7, and we're going to add a label to that. We're going to call that bird NPC, and we're going to give that a colour as well. Let's give that a cyan colour. Okay, we're going to be using some flags. We're going to have a comparison flag, which is just a working flag to compare values, and we're going to have a flag which is the bird's location. This will be changed in the process table to be the branch or the bandstand. And then it talks about flag number 5 in PAWS. So PAWS used to have some special flags called auto-decrementing flags. If you set them to any value other than 0, then each turn they used to automatically count back down to 0. So if you wanted a character to move, you could set it to 5. After 5 turns, when it reaches 0, you move the character and reset the flag back to 5. DAAD no longer uses those flags or auto decrements them itself, so we need to create our own decrementing flag, which we'll do here at the top of process 3. So just above that one, we're going to add a new entry, and we're going to have minus, because we want to be reducing the value of that flag, and we want to create a new flag. So we're going to create a new flag, continue. So we're going to add a new entry just above this one, and our contact here needs to be, in fact we're going to add not 0 first of all, and we're going to create a new flag which is our decrementing flag. We don't want that counting down if it's already 0. Oh, not giving it a value. Create and use. Then underneath that we're going to add a contact which is minus We want our new flag. And we're going to minus that by 1. Okay, so whenever that flag is not 0, it's going to count down every time we go through process 3. So now we have a series of entries to put into that new process table. Let's start with the first one. So we don't have any entries in process 7 yet, so we're going to click here to add a new entry. Our first one, we want to copy an object to a flag. So we're going to copy the ticket location, and we're going to copy that into, we want a new flag here. This is our comparison flag. Create and use. We want to then see with the same whether the location of that ticket is the same as the location of the bird. So we're going to use our comparison flag, and we're going to check that against, actually we don't have that flag yet, do we? We haven't created that. So let's start with f bird location, create and use that flag. We're going to set the decrement flag. No, we're going to check whether the decrement flag is 0. If it is 0, the bird is ready to fly. Add the contact. We're going to destroy the ticket. Because if the ticket's on the ground when the bird flies, it takes the ticket when it goes. We then need to check whether the bird is at the same location as our player. And if it is at the same location, we need to tell the player that the bird has snatched the ticket and taken it with them. Okay, that's the first one. We're going to add a new one underneath that. Next one is checking the bird's location against the tree branch. Okay, so is the bird up the tree? We need to check that decrementing flag. To see whether it's ready to fly from the tree branch. If so, we need to move the bird across to the bandstand. Which I've misspelt here, so I've put in bandstand instead of bandstand. Okay, so then we want to reset that decrementing flag. And we want to reset that to a value of 3. Which then gives us 3 more turns before the bird flies off again. We now want to check whether the bird sorry, wants to check if the player is at the tree. Is up the tree. And if they are up the tree, we want to tell them that the bird has flown away. Next, we want to check if the bird is at the bandstand, and this is very similar to the one above, so let's just clone that. So we now want to check if the bird location is at the bandstand. The flag is 0. We now need to move it to the tree. Decrementing flag is 3. We need to check if the player is at the bandstand, and if so, we give them the same message that the bird has flown away. So now we want to deal with the bird landing where the player is if it's just moved. So let's add a new one underneath. We want to check the value of the decrementing flag. So if that flag has just been set and the player is at the same location as the bird must just have arrived. So I'll check if it's the same location as the player. And then if it's the same as the player and we're at the bandstand, there's a slightly different message for the two different options. So are we at the bandstand? If so, we want a message to say a small bird has landed on the ground. Okay, so then we have another one which is very similar for if the bird lands on the branch. So we'll clone that one. We'll say same location, the bird and the player. This time we want to know if the player is up the tree when the bird lands, not by the tree, up the tree. And a slightly different message that the bird is landing on the branch. Okay, now we need to know if the bird has a ticket on it. So if it lands on the branch or the bandstand and it has a ticket, we want to be told that message. So we're going to add a new entry underneath. Again, we want to check whether that auto decrementing flag is 0, which means this event has just happened. Is not 0, is 3, which means it's just happened. We want to check if the bird is at the same location as the player. We want to know if the ticket is not created, which means the bird has it. So is at our ticket and is that at location not created, in which case we want a message to say the bird has a ticket in its beak. Then finally we want to know that if the player has dropped the sandwich, that the bird is going to drop the ticket. So by copying the bird's location to the ticket, we're going to put the ticket down at the same location. So let's create a new entry underneath. First one we want is copy object to flag. The object we want to copy is the ticket, and we want to copy that to our comparison flag. We now want to see if that is the same location as the bird. We want to check if the ticket is not created. It's back up at the top, not created. Then we want to copy the bird's location. So copy flag to object this time. This is the bird's location to the ticket. We want to know if the player is at the same location so we can tell them that the bird has dropped that ticket. And we need a message to say what has happened. Okay, so that's the control routine for the bird, but nothing's going to happen so far because we never call this process. So we need to go into process 4. So this gets called every time something is entered in the game, and we're going to add a new process underneath here which calls that process for us. So we're going to process, and it's process number 7. And we can actually just add a little comment here to say what that process does. Okay, so now it says we must ensure the bird starts at the correct location and the player knows the bird is there when that location is described. Or they'll see messages about a bird arriving and flying off with no mention of it in the description. So we need to select process 1, which is called after an entry is described, and amend the existing entry we made earlier to contain a let 12.8, which will ensure the bird is on the branch at the start of the game. Actually, that now would be in process 6, which is our initialization process. So we made a change to this one before when we changed the start location when we press any key to be the bus stop instead of location 1, which we were using to store objects. So just above that, let's put in a new entry, and here we're going to have a let. We want the bird's location, and we want to set the bird's location to be location 8, which is up the branch. L up tree. Okay. Process 3. Continue. So then we need an entry in the process table in process 3, which tells us that the bird is there, and also tells us if it has a ticket in its beak. So in process table 3, it's going to add a new entry underneath, and we want same bird location, and we want that to be the same as the player. We want to add a message that a small bird is here. Did we use that earlier? No, we said that a bird is landing on the branch. We need to create a new message to say small bird is here. Create and use. We need to check whether the ticket has been created or not. Not created. If it's not been created, the bird has a ticket in its beak, which we've already used here, so we can just message, and we'll find that message here. The bird has a ticket in its beak. So where do we go after that? Process 5 is our process to get the ticket. If the bird has the ticket, then we can't take that ticket. So we've been told the bird has a ticket in its beak, but we shouldn't be able to take that because it has to drop a sandwich first for the bird to drop the ticket. So process 5, let's add a new one at the top, and we want get ticket. Get ticket. We need to check whether we're at the same location as the bird. Location as the bird. We need to check whether the ticket has not been created, so the bird is still holding that ticket. We then want to force that bird to fly away, so we're going to clear that flag that decrements over time. So we clear our decrementing flag. And what that's going to do on next time round then is it's going to be on 0, so the process will fire, which makes the bird move. And we then want to add a message to say that we can't get the ticket. As we said before, if we want to, we can comment each of these entries, just so that later on when we're looking at the text file, we'll actually be able to remember what each of these steps do. I haven't done that so far, and I'm not going to do it for the rest of the game, but it just helps as a little reminder. So the next step will be to test the adventure. If we just go to the text editor and we'll jump down to process 5, get our auto examination messages, and then we have what we just entered in about get the ticket, and at the end we have our comments. So to test the adventure, we start off, we know the bird at the first place is going to be on the branch. We should be able to check that if we go to debug. Bird's location is at number 8, so we know the bird is on the tree branch. Next place it's going to go to, it's going to go to the bandstand. So if we head west and then we head north, the bird has flown to the bandstand. Bird is there, it's got the ticket in its beak. So if we drop the sandwich, and then we look was obvious there were some issues there. We got told that the ticket was there, or the bird had a ticket in its beak. We weren't actually told that the bird was there. Go back to process 3. I've got a missing message here. So let's put in the message. The small bird is here. I should fix that problem. Also had an issue where dropping the sandwich wasn't resulting in the bird dropping the ticket. So we go to the process entries for the bird, and let's have a look at the last one. Should be copy the location of the sandwich to the comparison flag, and I've got ticket, so we don't want to copy the ticket, we want to copy the sandwich, see whether the sandwich is at the same location as the bird. If it is, and the ticket is not created, then we want to copy the bird's location to the ticket. If it's the same as the player, we want the message the bird has dropped the ticket to peck at the sandwich. That should hopefully work a bit better. Let's go back again. So I've done some testing off camera. We had a couple of issues in our interpreter. First one was the message contact was not adding a new line to the end of the message. So all of the messages were appearing on one line, which they shouldn't have been. We've corrected that now. And also process 4 wasn't being called correctly. So every time we took an action, it wasn't showing up on the screen the messages about what the bird was doing. So we've made a couple of corrections in the interpreter, and we now have one correction to make in the processes. So initially I talked about flag 5 in PAWS, that it would automatically decrement every time the player moved, and we had to recreate that ourselves with our own decrementing flag. Now I put in process 3 that flag would decrement, but unfortunately that only decrements every time we move between one room and another. So if we check our inventory or look around or anything else, the bird never flies away properly. We need to get rid of that entry here, and we need to recreate it in process 4. So let's go to the top of process 4. We want to check not 0, and we want our flag that we decrement, and then we want to minus that by 1. Okay, so now every time we take an action, that counter should count down and the bird will fly away. Let's go back to test the adventure. Any key to continue. We're at the bus stop. We now want to go west, and we want to go north. The bird is here with a ticket in its beak. If we check our inventory and then look, the bird now flies away because that flag is decremented. Let's drop the sandwich, ready for that bird to come back, and we'll do a look, and we'll do another look, and now the small bird settles on the ground. The bird has a ticket in its beak. The bird drops the ticket to peck at the sandwich. So we should now be able to get the ticket, and if we go south and east, the bus arrives without us having to look first, and we can hand the ticket to the driver, who says, "Sorry I'm late, hope you haven't been standing here too long."